Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Ladar Gavelazi, and coming up in today's newscast, the U.S. presidential elections. All eyes are on the United States today as Americans head to the polls to vote for the 47th president. Will it be Kamala Harris or Donald Trump? Well, Israelis are certainly watching the elections very closely tonight. For over a year now, Israel has been fighting a multi-front war orchestrated by the Islamic Republic of Iran. The outcome of the U.S. elections could have a significant impact on this existential war and the future of the entire Middle East region. While both Harris and Trump have repeatedly expressed their support for Israel's security, both have vowed to end the war in Gaza and to return the hostages home. But the question remains, how? Today, Israel is not only fighting a war for its very existence, it is on the front lines of a war against a ruthless enemy hell-bent on destroying all of Western civilization. And what Israel needs most now is support. Support from the United States, its closest ally. And America, regardless of who is elected president tonight, also needs Israel, its last line of defense in the war for Western values, democracy, and freedom. Israel is not a Democrat or Republican issue. The two countries share a long history of friendship, mutual interests, and a close ironclad bond, as U.S. President Biden likes to say. And so Israel, along with the rest of the world, is watching its ally closely tonight. And the hope here in Jerusalem is that the next U.S. President, Trump or Harris, understand this reality, understand the stakes, and continue standing by and strengthening the relationship between the two countries. We will, of course, have extensive coverage of the view from Israel. But first, the news of the day out of Israel. The United States is contributing to a heightened state of alert in Israel in anticipation of a potential Iranian ballistic missile strike. Israel has not ruled out the possibility that the threatened Iranian retaliation for the Israeli strike on the Islamic Republic last month could happen tonight. The army anticipates the attack could come from its Iraqi proxy and not directly from Iran. This increased vigilance included a situational assessment across all branches and divisions of the IDF General Staff, including the Home Front Command, as the Army says air defenses are poised to meet any potential challenge. And air defense has been supplemented by the addition of the U.S. THAAD system. There are hundreds of American soldiers now deployed in Israel operating this missile defense system. A U.S. aircraft carrier and B-52 bombers are also in the region, underscoring the close cooperation between the IDF and the U.S. and CENTCOM in confronting the Iranian threat. And yet, amid the heightened alert, Israeli military sources say that despite reports in the foreign media, there is no confirmed information about the exact timing of the Iranian attack. They also say that Iran is still considering its options for retaliation and evaluating the scale of its response. Meanwhile, there has been continuing UAV and rockets fired by Hezbollah from Lebanon. This morning, the Air Force intercepted a UAV that entered Israeli airspace at Masada, near the Dead Sea, and another near Metula in the Upper Galilee. ILTV's Steve Leibovitz has the latest on the war in Lebanon.
Following the alerts that were activated in the Western Galilee overnight, about 30 launches were detected that crossed from Lebanon. Some were intercepted and the rest fell in open areas. In a quick closing of a circle, IDF forces attacked and destroyed the launcher from which the rockets were fired. The IDF reportedly caused significant damage to Hezbollah's intelligence gathering capabilities by striking and severely damaging the terror group's intelligence headquarters in Syria. Fighter jets attacked the area of Al-Sultaniya and killed Riach Racha Azawi, commander of the anti-tank formation of the Hezbollah Radwan force. Ground forces are continuing to operate in South Lebanon. IDF forces operating in a wooded area next to the border uncovered a Hezbollah compound intended as a staging ground for potential attacks into Israel. The forces uncovered a missile depot that included a stockpile of weapons which were hidden deep underground. The operations are part of the ongoing efforts to dismantle Hezbollah's capabilities to carry out cross-border attacks.
And it's day 396 of the war in Gaza. Hamas has announced that Mohammed Sinwar, the brother of its slain leader Yahya Sinwar, will be the terror group's new commander. And with the announcement also came the Hamas rejection of ceasefire proposals. ILTV's Devo Klein reports.
The war continues in Gaza. On the ground, the Nahal Brigade combat team is operating in the Rafah area. During the last day, the forces located hundreds of weapons, including rocket launchers, RPG missiles, and explosives, while eliminating terrorists and destroying terrorist infrastructure. According to the Israeli public broadcaster, since the killing of his brother, Mohammed Sinwar has been acting as the de facto head of Hamas military wing, alongside a small council of top commanders. The U.S. State Department announced that Hamas had rejected a proposal for a short-term ceasefire and hostage release deal, indicating that the terror group was refusing to budge from its key demand for a withdrawal of Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip, even after the killing of its leader, Yahya Sinwar, last month. Meanwhile, in a decision that will impact aid distribution in Gaza, Foreign Minister Katz has announced the Israeli exit from an agreement reached with UNRWA in 1967. Last week, the Knesset voted to end UNRWA activities inside Israel, leading Katz to declare the end of an agreement signed in 1967 after the Six-Day War, allowing the group to operate in Gaza and other territories captured in the war. Israel cites UNRWA's alleged terror ties and says it now plans to redirect Gaza aid to non-terror-linked organizations. The move by Israel could result in a legal confrontation with the Palestinians at the International Court of Justice in The Hague. Additionally, it is likely to provoke diplomatic backlash against Israel with the UN General Assembly.
And now, turning to the United States presidential elections, as Americans are heading to the polls to vote. With national polls showing Trump and Harris neck and neck, the Jewish American vote has the potential to sway the election one way or another. So what do the latest polls show, and what do the polls here in Israel show? ILTV's Maayan Hoffman has the results. Maayan?
Well, thank you, Lidar. The American Jewish population currently stands around 7.5 million, with about 5.8 million of these people over the age of 18 and hence likely eligible to vote. About 84% of Jews live in 12 states holding 271 electoral votes. That's just one more than needed to win the presidency. Although Jews make up only 2% of the U.S. population, they actually have a very high voter turnout, representing up to 3% of the electorate. However, 2/3 live in predominantly blue states, which lessens their overall influence. 13% live in swing states, and nearly half of these are in Pennsylvania, the swing state with the largest number of electoral votes. This can make the Jewish vote crucial in this election. The latest polls of Jewish voters show Harris leading Trump by around 65% to 30%. This mirrors Trump's total in 2020, though Harris polls 3 points lower than Biden did. If accurate, it would mark the lowest support for a Democrat among Jewish voters since 1988. In recent elections, Obama won 78% of the Jewish vote in 2008, 69% in 2012. Clinton received 71% in 2016, and Biden secured 68% in 2020. Some recent polls show Harris's Jewish support dipping to as low as 62%. However, according to the Democratic Jewish Outreach of Pennsylvania, 73% of Jews in battleground states are still backing Harris. A poll released just yesterday by the Israel Democracy Institute showed that 65% of Israelis think Trump would be better to serve Israel's interests. That's compared to 13% who prefer Kamala Harris, and another 15% who say they see no difference. If you focus just on Jewish Israelis, meaning take out the Arab Israeli citizens, the divide is even more striking. 72% favor Trump for Israel's interest, with just 11% choosing Harris. However, it's important to note that this poll did not account for eligibility to vote.
Thank you, Maayan. And now the U.S. presidential election could have a major impact on Israel's security and the ongoing war. Both candidates, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, have made forceful and sometimes controversial statements on the war, on Gaza, and on the future of the region. Joining us now with more on the candidates' views on Israel and the ongoing war and how Jerusalem views the elections are Aria Lightstone, former advisor to U.S. Ambassador David Friedman and one of the leading architects behind the Abraham Accords, and Dan Diker, president of the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs. Thank you both for joining us on this exciting and historic day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it looks like a very close race. Before we begin, any predictions, Aria?
I think President Trump is going to win the election. I think the American people are looking to go back to peace and prosperity, and President Trump is clearly the person for that.
Mm-hmm. Dan, any predictions? Do you agree with Arya that Trump's going to win?
I think that the winds of influence and the polls are showing that that President Trump has a very strong chance of pulling this out. If you look at some of the non-official polling companies, they're putting President Trump at between a 63 and a 66% chance of winning the elections. I certainly say that in Israel, a vast majority of between the 120 and 200,000 American Israeli voters with the right to vote in the Israeli elections would be voting for President Trump.
All right, so I want to start, Arya, we'll start with you. I want to start by taking a look at the candidates' views on Israel and on the ongoing war. You were an advisor during Trump's presidency. It's no secret that Donald Trump was one of the most supportive U.S. presidents of Israel. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem, brokered the Abraham Accords, and much more. Do you think if he is elected, he will continue with this pro-Israel record?
Yeah, when he's elected, he will continue to do this because the pro-Israel stance is a pro-America stance. He's going to stand with our allies, and many of our allies throughout the world look and measure their trust in the United States based upon what the U.S.-Israel relationship is like. It went against sort of common thought that recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, opening up our embassy to Golan Heights, and on and on and on, that would push the opportunity for peace further away in the region. In fact, it brought it closer. The exact opposite has happened under the Biden-Harris administration, distancing itself from Israel. Well, we see what the results of that. It's October 7th, and unfortunately, the follow challenges from there and American weakness has demonstrated that Ukraine, Russia, Afghanistan, and on and on and on.
And Dan, turning to you, what about Kamala Harris? She's made some controversial statements on Israel. She was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she was the first senior politician to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. I mean, is there concern that she could advance policies at odds with Jerusalem, as Arya suggested?
I think she is a candidate that knows very little about foreign affairs. That's not her training. She knows very little about the Middle East, and she also comes from a domestic, a Weltanschauung worldview of what they call human rights, and you always see her those statements accrue to the Palestinians and the Gazans that she calls the major humanitarian crisis, when in fact the major humanitarian crisis is that you still have 101 hostages being brutalized, raped, and held in captivity, including 9 American citizens. So I think that her positions are quite different than President Trump's positions, and I think that they are not. I wouldn't call them anti-Israel positions per se, but I think they're positions that most of the countries in the Middle East disagree with, because they actually advance, strengthen, and energize America's arch enemy, which is the Islamic Republic of Iran and all of its terror tentacles. So I think that she's very low on the learning curve, and she's really reflecting in a way, or mirroring, if you will, the American domestic discourse, which is today dictated by the perception of the oppressed and the oppressor. And I think that there is a mistake here in how that is being mirrored into the Middle East, and that comes out in a strong sense against Israel's vital interests, which are America's vital interests, and they are the vital interests of a stable and secure Middle East as well.
Mm-hmm. And Arya, turning back to you, I mean, you are very confident in Trump's pro-Israel record, but there is also a concern in Jerusalem that a second Trump candidacy might not look like the first. There are sort of two streams within the Republican Party today, the traditional pro-Israel stream represented by figures from the last administration, and there's this sort of America First stream, which is not necessarily a pro-Israel stream, and they seem to be gaining influence with Trump. I mean, what do you make of this?
Yeah, I make of this a lot of hand-wringing that happens. I think there was interest in what President Trump was going to be like his first term. What's clear about President Trump is he is not predictable. What is also clear about President Trump is he's going to do the right thing for the United States of America. And Israel is in a strong position to be that standing with Israel is the right thing for the United States of America. So whether you take it from the wing that is less interested in foreign intervention and you take it from the wing that is more interested in foreign intervention, any decision that has to be made is going to be made where the overlap of what's in the best interest for the United States of America will also in all likelihood be for the best interest of the state of Israel. This is one of the advantages to being closely aligned to the United States of America. Now, there will be times, and Israel has made this mistake in the past, where they would creep over towards the size of China with certain investments in technology and what have you. Israel has learned that mistake. I don't believe it's going to do that again. And I believe when President Trump wins the election today, that there will be a new opportunity in the Middle East, one unrivaled by even the 4 years that he had before as president.
Mm-hmm. And Dan, turning to you, I'm curious, how does Jerusalem view the election, the candidates? There is, as we heard, a preference among Israelis, but what about Netanyahu and other government officials?
Well, as you know, Israel's worked with Democratic and Republican administrations both, and in Israel, no matter who the prime minister has worked with both sides of the political aisle in the United States very well. I think that the drama that we're witnessing here from Jerusalem is that this election is not really between Republicans and Democrats. It's between President Trump and not President Trump. It's really a personality-driven election, and I can tell you that from Jerusalem's point of view, whoever becomes president will have to understand that Israel has irrefutable, unconditional security conditions to survive in this turmoil-driven, chaotic, very dangerous Middle East that's being driven by the what's known as the Iranian octopus and all of its terror tentacles extending into every country in the Middle East. And that is, in short, Israel will have to have what's known as defensible borders that it can defend. We saw on October 7th that Israel's southern border was penetrated. Israel's northern border nearly penetrated. We're being hit by the air. So it's clear that Israel is going to have to assert itself in this new Middle East in order to survive here with defensible borders, which I think that President Trump is aware of, his advisors are aware of, and I think it's less in the discourse of the Democratic side. But again, these are principles of national security and security that Israel is going to have to insist on no matter who becomes president, because we are living in a far more dangerous Middle East, ideologically and religiously fueled hatred against the one and only Jewish state the size of Maryland, that the American administration is going to have to understand. This is a new Middle East, not the one that former Prime Minister Peres had envisioned.
And Aryeh, last question to you. On the U.S. Side, what will be the major issues on the agenda with regards to Israel? What are we likely to see in the next few months until a new president takes office?
Yeah. Well, until the new president takes office, whether it's President Trump or President Harris, I think we're going to be headed towards rocky times. There's clearly a lack of leadership in the White House today. That lack of leadership is going to be exacerbated over the period of time between Election Day and Inauguration Day. If at the end of that rocky period, there's President Trump with a stable hand at the wheel, then I think everything will be able to be managed to be able to make it through that time. If at the end of that tunnel is a President Harris, I actually believe that Israel should take advantage of the instability in the White House at the moment, make bold moves now, because they will not be able to predict where President Harris will land when it comes to Middle East policies. My overall assumption is whatever people are thinking today, it has a strong possibility of being meaningfully worse. Now, I'm not hoping that that's the case, but I think that Israel has to plan for that being the case.
All right. Well, Aryeh Lightstone, Dan Diker, thank you so much for your analysis today. It's certainly going to be an exciting night as we wait to find out who will be the next president of the United States. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with the world's eyes on who the next U.S. president will be, ILTV's Ariella Lachiani headed out to see who the people of Tel Aviv want for the next American president. Let's take a look.
It is election day, and as the votes are coming in, the world is anxiously awaiting to see who will be the next president of the United States of America. So let's speak to the people of Tel Aviv and see who they want as the next American president.
I choose Trump because I think Trump will take care of every Israeli person in this country, and he proved himself last time he was a president that he can take care of us and he will take care of us.
We as Israelis, we feel a little bit more comfortable with Trump because we sort of know, or at least we think we know, what his views are. With Harris, we feel that because she represents a lot of progressives and their agenda is different, so we don't know what to expect. And that is, especially during the time of war, it's a little bit worrisome.
Of course, of Trump.
Trump.
Trump is better now for Israel, especially in the war. He can help us. He wants the best for Israel, and he knows that what is the right side now on the war, and this is why we think Trump needs to win.
Trump, because it's for Israel, and we need it.
I think Trump is good for Israel, and Harris is good for America. For us, it's Trump for sure.
Not a single vote for Harris. And now it's time for our Hebrew word of the week. Each week, along with eTeacher, we learn a new Hebrew word and related to the Bible, current affairs, and our everyday lives. For more info on the Rosen School of Hebrew, please scan the QR code on your screen. But in the meantime, let's hear this week's word of the week.
Welcome to Hebrew Word of the Week. I'm Mariella, and in this segment, together with eTeacher, we explore the beauty and depth of the Hebrew language. Each week, we learn a new Hebrew word or phrase and discover how it's used in the Bible, current events, and everyday life. Today's Hebrew word is milchama, which means war. In Hebrew, milchama signifies not only physical conflict between nations or groups, but also struggles and battles on a personal or spiritual level. In the Hebrew Bible, milchama is a frequent term, describing the many battles fought by the people of Israel. However, beyond physical confrontations, it often reflects a deeper struggle between good and evil and the idea that peace and justice must be fought for. In modern Hebrew, milchama is still a relevant word, especially in the context of Israel's history and ongoing defense. However, it also represents internal or metaphorical wars, challenges people face in their personal lives, where perseverance and strength are required to overcome obstacles. Here are some examples of how the word milchama is used in a sentence. המלחמה נגמרת רק כשיש שלום. The war ends only when there is peace. אנחנו נלחמים למען עתיד טוב יותר. We are fighting for a better future. So if you're interested in learning more about the Hebrew language, check out eTeacher. This online and live course is the most established Hebrew language instruction institution. You can learn with a time-proven method for every level or start from scratch. eTeacher offers dynamic online courses with live video lessons, weekly webinars, and ample support, allowing you to connect with a lively global community for an enriched learning experience. Scan the QR code or click the link below and visit the eTeacher website today to learn more. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Hebrew word milchama. Please join us next week for another episode of Hebrew Word of the Week. And in the meantime, reflect on the milchamot or wars that you have faced in your life, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual. How do you fight your battles, and what are you fighting for? Feel free to share your thoughts and experiences with us in the comments below.
Sagot Winery, where passion meets tradition. Nestled in the heart of Binyamin, our vineyards yield exquisite wines, crafted with generations of expertise.
And now, let's take a look at the weather forecast. Mostly clear skies are expected tonight around the country, with temperatures reaching lows of around 15 degrees Celsius or 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, mostly cloudy skies are expected alongside warm temperatures reaching highs of about 27 degrees Celsius or 82 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Ledar Gavelazi. Be well, stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.